Welcome to the GPFF Lives Online conversation. My name is Kelly Devine. I'm the Artistic Director. Please join me and Nina Strike, the Executive Director, as we join in conversation with Desireena, Almoradie, the filmmaker and activist behind the film The Worst Thing, which had appeared at the 2019 Global Peace Film Festival. And now, let's start our conversation.
Well, welcome, Desireena. It's so great to see you. And I just wanted to start by asking you to tell us about The Worst Thing.
Well, first of all, I really wanted to thank you both, Nina and Kelly, for inviting me to these talks. The films, it was actually the premiere of the film in the US when it showed at the Global Peace Film Festival in 2019. So it was a really, really wonderful experience. So thanks for having me back. So The Worst Thing is about a woman named Katherine Pequeño. We follow her on her restorative justice journey. So it really is about a woman who's searching for answers after her brother has been murdered. And you know, it's about forgiveness, it's about reconciliation, and it, you know, as we go on the journey, the answers we're searching for become a little deeper because it becomes kind of multi-layered. And within the film itself, I come to realize that I'm also searching for something. You know, the reason I made this film becomes evident in the film as you watch. So it was a journey for both her and myself.
Now, you say that the filmmaking process, it kind of revealed to you that you were on your own journey, but you didn't know that when you first met Kathleen. So what attracted you initially to Kathleen and to the story?
So Kathleen was a really good friend of mine in high school. We kind of grew up together in Queens, New York. And then towards the end of our time in high school, we both went to Stuyvesant. We kind of drifted apart. And then I lost track of her. And when, you know, as I grew up, as I became a young adult, I realized, you know, I was queer. And when I came to realization of my own sexuality, I thought back to Kathleen because she was actually out and proud in high school. And I always was so, it was such an amazing thing to be out back then. This was the early 80s. No one was out, you know? And so I always wanted to find her. And I wanted to tell her, listen, I'm queer too. This is why we were always friends, you know? And amazingly enough, social media came to fruition. Facebook, we found each other again. And when I reconnected with her, she told me about this horrible, horrible thing that happened during our time in high school together, her brother being murdered. And I'd completely forgotten about this horrible event in her life. And then she told me she was trying to connect and make friends with the people that were responsible for the murder. And I was just completely flabbergasted. I had no idea why anyone would attempt to do this. And I didn't understand it. And so being a filmmaker, I wanted to see if she could pull it off. And that started the journey of making the film.
And, you know, the thing about Kathleen, it's funny that you say that she was out in high school because there's a real bravery about her. There's a real, and you can just see it even in just the way she holds herself, that even though she changes and evolves, she's always very transparent and very honest about her dealings with everyone. And I think that's what makes her such a remarkable character.
Yeah.
Because she takes on, you know, you had just mentioned that she seeks out the people who are responsible for her brother's murder, but she does it with really no sense of vengeance, or she really leaves herself open to finding out what it would mean to connect with these people, to actually listen to them and find out why they did what they did without any sense of it being an exchange, that they owed her something. And I think it's a very powerful way for her to approach it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when you hear about someone, oh, they're searching for their their brother's murderer, their brothers, yeah, the people who killed their brother, it's usually about revenge, right? It's like
Right.
the thriller revenge, and then you find them and then you do to them what they did to you. And this is like the opposite story. And I mean, Kathleen's obviously done a lot of work. And, you know, a lot of that takes place outside the film's purview, right? Outside the film story.
Mhm.
So she's done a lot of work, and you know, the fact that I reconnected with her was really a gift for me, because I've really grown a lot and, you know, learned a lot from her. At the same time, you know, she's human like every one of us, and she still, you know, on this journey had her own expectations of what these encounters would look like, right? And the last encounter with a woman named Monica was very, very difficult because, you know, Kathleen, I always say Kathleen is so American. Like, she's just like, she came out, you know, just like talking a mile a minute and like, you know, letting everyone know what she thinks. But, you know, like some of us are more introverted, right? Or like, you know, we don't say everything that we think. And I think, you know, going to Germany and encountering all these people, you know, encountering the German culture, it's very different from the American culture. So besides the language barrier, there was a lot of like cultural barriers that we needed to get over. But, you know, I think, you know, that difficult dialogue actually like made the film, you know, more interesting, because I didn't want her to be kind of this, you know, this person who was just perfect and everyone she talked to like just was open to her and thought that she was this amazing person, you know. It's a bit more complicated than that, and we're all still learning.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Your film does an excellent job of creating that that texture of
Mhm.
complications of life. But one thing I wanted to kind of dig into a little more deeply, which aligns with the mission for Gold Peace Film Festival, is about um, looking for those models, looking for those beacons of ways in which to take a more peaceful approach to life, and a way to seek justice in life. And we do it in different ways, right? We all take our different roles. And you had mentioned before we started today's conversation that you see yourself as a media activist, but Kathleen is an on the ground activist. So can you talk about both types of work, and then maybe we'll, you know, then ask that third type of work, our audience, you know, what you would expect them to take away from you know, your, you know, from the film.
Yeah, it's quite a complicated question. It's a really great question, but you know, I've never ever been a person to go out and march for rights. I mean, I think I've always grown up having a very, very deep sense of, you know, what's right and what's wrong. And when I see it, I do something. And these days it's, you know, trying to, you know, show it somehow, right? Because as a filmmaker, all you can do is show an injustice or talk about, you know, like create media that sheds a light on what's happening. And then there are these people that are actually like, you know, like putting themselves out there and doing the work and being inspiring. And Kathleen is one of those people. I mean, she's developed a deep friendship with one of the people in the film who's part of the Red Army faction. They have language Zooms every weekend, and she learns English. I mean, she learns German, and he practices his English. But she's really dedicated to prison reform work, especially around people who've grown old in prison and who've paid for their crimes so many years, you know, being locked up, and now need to be taken out of there and, you know, be, you know, like given some respect and you know, like, you know, we need to take care of our elders, and they shouldn't be locked up. So that's her the main, one of her main focuses now as an activist. And then the third form of activism is just, when people watch films, the hope for me as a filmmaker is that people watch a film or watch my film and they learn something they didn't know before. And whether it's just finding out more about the issue, donating to a cause by putting your credit card and like plunking some money down. I think knowledge is just really important, and it's also in this world of such, there's such silos in terms of, you're either on this camp or on this camp. It's like, no, like I think the work that you guys are doing at the Global Peace Film Festival is trying to show that we're all human. And, we have so much more in common than not, right?
Right.
And the last thing we want to do is stop talking to each other. I think, our commonality as people who think and, and talk, like we need to keep talking. The last thing we want is to just be in our own little group and, talk about things that we all agree on,
So,
Yeah.
so yes, absolutely. So let us know what's happening with the film now and what's next for you.
So I'm really excited because we just got the film translated into Spanish, and it has an amazing title. It's called El Mayor Daño, which means the worst harm. And so I'm excited because a lot more people will be able to watch the film. The film is actually now in wide release. I've released it myself. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on Plex for free. You just have to watch a few commercials. It'll be on Tubi soon. And there's a YouTube channel it'll be up on soon. So the film is being seen all over the world. As for new projects, I have a couple of new projects. One is I'm collaborating with a friend, a filmmaker who. So I'm collaborating with a filmmaker who is exploring her roots as she's applying to become a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. So we're exploring her roots as a member of people who kind of prop up white supremacy in less obvious ways and doing that kind of self-exploration. And
Right.
to me, it's really interesting to talk about white supremacy from that angle, because we always think that white supremacy is a POC issue, a people of color issue, and it's not. It's really about the folks who sprung this on us. So yeah, we're really looking forward to that. And I'm also doing a film about Kilowin Collectible, which is a queer lesbian collective that I co-founded 25 years ago, or more than 25 years ago. I can't remember. I'm so old. But that'll be just mostly archival footage with some contemporary interviews. So.
Oh, very good. Well, this is a great, June is a great month for us to be showcasing that. That's terrific.
Yeah. So hopefully in a year or so, it'll be available. So.
Oh, good. And I'd really like to see the Daughters of the American Revolution. I mean, you're right. I've just on a personal level, I started doing a little noodling around during the pandemic on Ancestry and finding out that I'm related to people that I'm like, oh, oh.
Yeah. It's interesting how that kind of genetics like research is really like a tool that a lot of white supremacists use, and then they all freak out when they realize, oh my God, I'm not Anglo.
Right, there is that, or there is, oh, I'm part of the people who were the vanguard of all the clearing everyone out, or
exactly.
And then you're like, really oh,
And it's interesting because it's also about your family's mythology and what the family tells the other members of the family. Because
Right.
I was always told that my grandfather was Spanish, and then so I got my DNA. I'm like, I'm pure Asian and Malay, you know, like we're not Spanish, you know, and that talks, that talks to the, the idea of white supremacy and like colonialism, you know, it's like
Right,
so,
right. Oh, yeah. So we can't wait to have that on because I think it really is a fascinating thing. I mean, you again, the complexities and the textures of it, right?
yeah,
That
absolutely.
we have, it is a social, race is a social construct,
Mhm.
right? But we forget that because it's like that saying I was introduced to in my first sociology class, that a fish doesn't know it's in water until it's taken out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we don't realize that we're in a constructed social um, construct until something causes us to have to think deeply about it or to have to examine things. And I think the interesting thing about it is that, of course, it's confusing whenever you have to think about something that you've not thought about for all of your life. But once you acknowledge that, then you should be able to take a deep breath and not feel defensive about it, to just say, oh,
absolutely.
let me know. Okay, now that I know, let me embrace things,
Yeah. I'd like to say something more about that. It's interesting because, fish out of water. I came to the US when I was 11 and I had no idea. Like I was just a happy little kid in the Philippines, and then all of a sudden I was transported to a place where no one looked like me. And
right,
I didn't really talk for a while because I was learning the language. I was learning not to sound like I wasn't from here, So I've kind of gotten rid of the accent, but there's all these ways that you have to cope as a person of color and as a person who wasn't born here, that, that most white folk, it's just, it's just easy, like, so it's just, there's all these interesting things that, kind of doing self-examination, like kind of
and
helps.
taking the fear and the defensiveness out of that
Right.
examination. I
Yeah,
think,
exactly.
to get back to your earlier wonderful point about, we need to keep talking to one another and we need to keep recognizing that humanity in a good faith way. So
Right.
part of that is when we feel that fear welling up, is to ask ourselves, let's take that deep
That
breath.
defensiveness, right?
Right. Let's take that deep breath and then
Everyone, yeah.
look at things in a more level-headed way. And
But
then,
everyone's so defensive these days and so sensitive, shall we say? So,
right. They're shutting up the chance to kind of learn some interesting things.
yeah. And bringing it back to Kathleen, like that's why she's such an interesting character, because she's vulnerable, and like she doesn't have all the answers. She has some answers, but she's willing to find out if what she thinks is true is actually true. So.
Oh, that's a wonderful way to end it, to underline why people need to see this film, which they can see now. The Worst Thing. And could you remind everyone the different ways that they can see it?
Yes, it's on Amazon Prime. So if you have a Prime membership, you can watch it for free on Prime. All over the world, actually. It's in Germany and the UK and the Philippines. It's also on Plex. So Plex is a free streaming platform. You can download it on Roku, on Apple TV, anything, and then you can watch the film for free there. And it will be on Tubi as well soon. If you want to support the filmmaker, you can watch the film through Vimeo, and then I get more money. But I don't really. It's not a big deal, where you watch it. So
that's great. Well, thank you so much, Desireena. And thank you everyone who watched this glow. We really appreciate it. You can see all of the different links, and please follow on social media, The Worst Thing Film on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. And remember to go to the Global Peace Film Festival website, peacefilmfest.org, and to follow us on social media to keep track of all the events between now and September the 20th, when our in-person festival begins, the 20th of September through the 26th. And then we will continue with online selection of films from the 27th through October 3rd. And again, thank you so much. We'll see you soon.